Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we'll be making this ghost Amigurumi plush. For materials today, you will need 300 grams of a white weight 4 yarn, 100 of a weight 4 black yarn, less than 50 of a weight 4 pink yarn, as well as a 4mm hook, some scissors, and whatever you want to use for stuffing. As always, check out my Instagram for the PDF. For step 1, you're going to start by making a slip knot, layering 2 strands of your white yarn together. We're doubling up to make a fluffier stuffed animal. If you've never made a slip knot before, or if you've never made it with 2 layers of yarn, it's actually the exact same as a regular slip knot, and you do it by simply wrapping your fingers around the yarn like this, and then pulling the yarn through itself. Pull on it to tighten, and then shove your hook straight through that little center. Once you've put your hook on and through, you can pull that smaller tail, make sure you're grabbing both sides, and then you can begin to chain to form a chain ring. To chain, simply loop over and then pull the yarn through the hole you already have. You're going to do this 4 total times. Once you've finished all 4 of your chains, you're going to make a slip stitch into that first chain that you made. A slip stitch is essentially a chain, but going through 2 of the chains you already have. So shove it through like this, and then loop over and pull through both of those loops. For step 4, we're going to be adding 6 half double crochets inside of the middle of that chain ring. So start by chaining once, and then you're going to simply loop over your yarn, find the hole, and insert that looped yarn straight through. From there, you loop over again and pull it through. Now you'll have 3 loops on your hook. So I'm going to show you how to define each 3 like this. Then you're going to loop over your yarn once more and pull through all 3 of those loops. You'll now continue to do this 6 more times all the way around your little ring. From there, you're going to slip stitch this shut. So to do so, you want to find that first half double crochet that you made. It'll stick out like this, almost like a little braid, and you want to insert your hook through the side of it. So take your hook like this and find the side part of that braid, so you're going underneath those 2 visible loops. Push it all the way through, and then you'll do a slip stitch the same way as you did before, grabbing both of those threads of yarn, pulling it through once, and then pulling it through the other loop. You'll chain 1 more time to finish this off, and you'll have completed the first row of your project. Continuing to row 2, we're going to begin this sort of pattern to expand the circle. So you're going to start by doing 2 half double crochets into each of these stitches. Now you do this the same way as you did the normal half double crochets in the last row, this time making sure you're going into the same stitch 2 times each. So it'll get a little bit crowded, but it will start to expand your piece. Once you've made it around, you'll slip stitch and chain 1 again. You want to make sure you do this at the end of every single row. From there, we'll be moving on to row 3, where we'll be doing 1 normal half double crochet stitch, and then 2 half double crochets and 1 stitch afterwards. So you're just going to be alternating once, then twice, all the way around your circle. Now for the last time in my explanation, but every time after you end a row, you want to slip stitch and chain 1. Just because I'm not showing it doesn't mean don't do it. From there, our next row, which is row 4, will be 2 single half double crochets and then 2 in 1. So going 1 half double crochet, 1 half double crochet again, then 2 half double crochets. And you'll do this all the way around once more. Again, continuing on, row 5 will be 3 singular half double crochet stitches and then 2 in the following. So again, 1 half double crochet, 1 half double crochet, 1 half double crochet, and then finally 2. For row 6, you'll be doing those 4 individuals before your double. So again, just follow the directions as they're written, 1, then 1, then 1, then 1, then 2. Then last but not least, for row 7, you'll be doing 5 individual half double crochets followed by your 2. So once more, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, then 2 half double crochets, going all the way around and finishing there. For the next 5 rows, you are simply just going to be doing 1 half double crochet stitch into every single stitch in the round. So for rows 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, which is 5 total, you're just going once into each until you make it all the way around, which is when we'll start to add the facial components. If you'd like to make this a bit easier on yourself, I would recommend flipping your project inside out. Just know that it will make a very non-noticeable change, of making the directions of your stitches switch. So if that bothers you, I recommend skipping that step. Moving on to row 13, you are going to start by half double crocheting 18 times around. So we're going to make sure that we count very, very carefully through these, because this is where we're going to start adding the eyes and blushes for your little ghost. You're going to switch to black now, doing a very basic color switch. Layer both pieces of black yarn up against each other like so, and then basically make a slip stitch, the exact way I'm showing you with my fingers here, into that last stitch that you made, pulling to leave a small tail of black up against the inside of the little ghost body. From there, you want to also pull your white yarn into the ghost body as well, and then start a half double crochet using the black yarn. So do what you normally do, yarning over, and then inserting into the next stitch, yarning over again and pulling through. Now this time, rather than pulling through all three again, you're going to want to switch back to your white yarn. So pull this black yarn back, pull up on your white yarn here, and then you're simply going to switch back to white. We do this so that way the top of the stitch is the right color and that you don't have any weird diagonals. So once you've switched back to your white, you're now going to make 5 more regular half double crochets, making sure that on the 5th one with your white yarn, you are leaving it open to switch back to black again. Now again, once we're at the end of that spot, we're going to pull both of the white yarns to the inside of the ghost head, switch back to the black yarn, and now pull it through like so, creating just 1 more half double crochet. Again, you're going to leave it open, pull the black in, loop the white back over and pull through with that, so we have a nice clean base to use our white all the way around. So from this point, you don't need to count anymore, just make sure you half double crochet all the way back around to the start of your piece. Moving on to row 14, we're doing something very similar to the previous row, where we start by just half double crocheting normally for 16 stitches. After you finish your 16 stitches, we are now going to color switch to that pink yarn the exact same way we did for the black yarn earlier. So pull it through and make sure all of your tails are on the inside of your ghost face. This time, now doing 2 pink half double crochets as opposed to the one we did for the black yarn. So do your first one normally, and then do your second one with the opening to switch back to your white afterwards. So make sure you leave those 3 loops open, pull your white up and your pink in, and then continue around. You're then going to do 7 white half double crochet stitches. From there, once again, you'll leave that last one open and then move back to your pink for 2 more to make sure it is symmetrical. Again, you'll do 1 normal pink half double crochet and then 1 with the opening, so that way we can switch back to our white afterwards. This might be a lot for beginners, so please be very careful as you go through these color switching steps, and feel free to leave me a comment or a DM on Instagram if you want a little bit of help or a deeper explanation. And once you finish with your pink, you will switch back to your white, this time going all the way around to complete the row again. Once you've finished that row, you're simply going to go to all of those little pink and black strands you have left over, tying them very nicely and gently, and then trimming the ends so that way they fit nicely on the inside. You don't have to worry about weaving them in since they're just going to be meshed with the stuffing anyways. Your next 5 rows again are those super simple half double crocheting rows. This time again going all the way around your piece, and don't forget to do your slip stitch and your chain 1 at the ends of each of them. I want to take a moment here to do a little shape check-in. Yours should look just like mine at this point in the project. From here, you now want to cut your yarn and leave a nice long tail in between, because we're going to build the bottom of the piece next. So that being said, take your hook and pull up on that little chain that you made in your last row, making sure to leave a nice long chunk for when we tie it back later. So just simply take your scissors and cut your yarn like so. To create the bottom of the project, you're just going to repeat the first 7 rows that you did to start it. This will make it the equal size of the circumference of your ghost, and it'll be easy to crochet on in a minute. If you don't remember it off the top of your head, it's just that pattern that we went over at the start. Once you've made your whole bottom, you're now going to go back to that ghost face that we made before and begin attaching them together, not with sewing, but rather just with your hook. Not only do I not like sewing, but I think this creates a stronger base. You're simply going to start by lining the 2 pieces up, you should have 42 stitches on each row. You'll end up inserting them like this in between them, but before you do so, you want to first go back into the bottom of this panel here. So making sure the inside part will be facing the inside of the ghost, insert your hook into a random stitch in the original ghost face that you made. So it'll look like this. From here, you want to take that little yarn that we were using a second ago and begin to make slip stitches all the way around. Ignore the long yarn tail that we cut earlier, we're not ready for that part yet. You're just going to continue around using the same bit of yarn you used to make the bottom piece. So work your way around doing one slip stitch in each stitch, and at the very end we're going to once again slip stitch and chain one. Before we finish slip stitching this together, we want to fill the ghost up with our stuffing. So leave a small hole like this, grab whatever you're using, whether it be scrap yarn, polyfill, or something else, and just begin to stuff your ghost. From there, you're just going to finish slip stitching all the way around until you get to the end. And like I mentioned before, once you slip stitch it all together, you're going to chain one time and then cut your yarn. After you cut your yarn, you want to simply pull through from the hook going outwards like this. Pull it tightly to make that knot and secure it, and then weave in your ends however you see fit. I just like to weave it in and out using the crochet hook. And again, to check our shape, let's look at it here. You should have a small bump on the underneath part like this, and your guy should be a little firm to hold. He shouldn't mush too much. From there, we're going to make a crochet mouth, basically using slip stitches with the crochet hook. So rather than sewing anything or needing a darning needle, we're just going to use the materials that we already have. So this time, you want to insert diagonal to the eyes. We're going to make a cute smiley face. Once you go through, you want to pull up on just one piece of yarn, not two layered together this time, and make sure you've connected it so we can start to make a triangle. I'll show you the first bit of these in a slower speed, and then I'm going to speed it up, because most of this is just trial and error. You don't need to follow exactly what I'm doing, and you can make any size face you want. I just want to show you the basic principle. So once you've hooked on one loop, you want to kind of line out where you want your face to go, and then begin attaching the other pieces, again just by making little slip stitches like this. I like to go diagonal to the eyes regardless of what you're doing, just because it'll keep your proportions looking really stable. So from here, you can see I just made a cute straight line, and we're going to use that same principle throughout this to continue to make the shape we want. So now that the shape is done, our next point is to fill it all in, this time now having those two pieces of yarn lined up together, and now it'll make a thicker piece to start to cover more ground. So you kind of just want to go through the stitches you've already used, not pulling on too many new ones or it'll start to disfigure the face, and just going in and out until everything is layered the exact way you want it to be. The best way to describe this part is just by doing layers over and over again until you build up the outside to the thickness that you want to see. Once you finish with whatever face you want, you just want to cut your yarn and tie a small knot, like a very basic knot together here, not pulling too tight or you're going to pull the corners of the little mouth that you made. So very gently do so, and then take your crochet hook and pull that knot inside of the plush itself so that way you can't see it and that it doesn't tug on anything. You're then going to turn back to that yarn tail you cut earlier, and we're going to tie on a little bit more yarn here, making a very tiny knot so we can continue the little points at the bottom of our ghost. So just tie a very basic knot. The pattern for each of these points is 1/2 double crochet in the stitch you started in, 1 double crochet in the following stitch, a triple crochet in the stitch after that, followed by 3 chains, then another triple crochet, another double, and another 1/2 double. So I'm showing you this very slowly, so that way you guys can get the gist of exactly how to do this pattern. Because we are 42 stitches in circumference, you're going to be repeating this part of the pattern 7 times total. If you decide that you've skipped a spot and you need to go back, it'll be very easy to distinguish them since each point is done with a slip stitch in between them. And again, we're keeping this slow so I can show you the things you haven't seen before. The double crochet is just a 1/2 double crochet but pulling through a second time. The triple crochet is yarning over 1 extra time, and then like the double, pulling through 2 again, and then pulling through 2 once more. Very simple. You're then going to do 3 chains in between, just pulling through the same way you normally would, And whenever you come across that little tie spot, you're just going to ignore it and push it towards the inside. We'll weave it in later. Then again, going the opposite direction, you'll do another triple crochet, another double, and another half. Like I'd mentioned earlier, we're going to do a slip stitch at the end of each of these points, and then you're going to chain 1 and begin the points again in that same stitch. So you just keep repeating that pattern until you have 7 points total. From there, you're going to find that very first stitch that you made, make another slip stitch, chain 1 and cut your work, and from that point your points are done. I said point a lot in that sentence. And then you're just going to weave in your ends the same way we did before, using your hook most likely, or if you would prefer a darn needle, grabbing that and doing so that way. To begin making the hat, you're going to start again with a chain ring, the exact same way we made one earlier. The only difference now is that we're going to single strands of yarn rather than that doubled up bit we were doing before. So again, make a slip knot and chain 4 times, then slip into the first stitch that we had done. Try to be careful when you're doing it this way. Since the yarn is a little bit thinner on its own, it can be easy to get messed up. From there, you're just going to half double crochet 5 times inside of the chain ring, as opposed to the 6 times we did earlier. This will make it a slightly smaller base, or slightly thinner base, than the one we had started with. So again, 5 times around. Once you've made it 5 times around, you will slip stitch and chain 1, and again doing this in between every single row. From there, you're going to do another row of normal half double crochets. It'll total 5 times since you're just going once into each stitch. And once more as a final reminder, at the end of it you will do your slip stitch and your chain 1 as well. Your next row for this part of the pattern is 1 half double crochet, then 2 half double crochets. This will not be even like it was in the first one since we're using an odd number, but it doesn't matter, just go until you can't anymore. We then move on to our last 3 rows. We are doing 2 half double crochets in every single stitch. The reason we're doing 2 back to back to back is to make that sort of roughly look that most witch hats have. Once you have finished all 3 of those, you are going to chain 1, cut your yarn and pull through, and then simply weave in your ends however you feel. You also want to make sure that you flip your hat inside out during this part of the process, so that way all the weird bits are on the inside and you have a nice clean outside as well. I use my fingers to try and form it to be the exact shape that I want. Next, you're going to want to attach the ghost to the hat, so you want to start by inserting your hook through the ghost itself, then up through the brim of the hat and pulling through. That's going to create the line that you're going to use to continually weave through the brim and back through the ghost itself. So the main point of doing this here is that there's no specific amount of times you need to weave in and out, just that you need to do so until you feel the hat is as secure as you want it. So if you want it to move around or blow a little bit, do maybe 4 of these little in and outs. If you want a little bit more, then you can do upwards of 5 or 6 and it'll be extremely secure. From there, your hat should look a little bit like this. You then want to take the little leftover pieces and tie it into a knot the same way you made your mouth. Then use your hook to pull the knot through the plush like so. From there, we're going to move on to building the belt of the hat, which we're just going to use some of that pink yarn from earlier, tying it into a slip knot, and then chaining 10 total times. We do 10 because that's double the double the circumference of the hat we made earlier. So again, 10 like this, and then building what's basically just a really big chain ring. So after you've made all 10 of your chain stitches, you're going to go back to that first stitch that you made and create an easy slip stitch. Going straight through like this, going in and pulling through both. You'll then chain once, cut your yarn, and pull it through so that way you have this perfect little ring. From there, you actually just want to take it and make sure that everything is pulled nice and tight, and then you're going to go back up to your hat and physically put this ring around the hat itself. So once everything is secure, just stretch it out a little bit if it needs to be, and then wrap it around the tip of the hat. So it'll form a really cute little belt that'll sort to bring the colors together. From there, same way that we attached the hat to the ghost, you're going to insert your hook underneath and then pull those 2 little yarn tails into the hat itself. This will keep your ghost connected to the hat and your hat connected to the belt, so nothing will fly apart from each other or end up in a weird spot. Once you've pulled everything through the hat, you can tie a little knot here and then simply trim your work if you choose to do so. So separate those two pieces as best you can, tie them together once or twice without doing anything too tight, or else you're going to begin to pull the belt apart, and then you can just grab your scissors and trim just like this. It's a very simple piece, but it adds a little bit of character to your ghost that wouldn't have been there before. And with that, I want to thank everybody for watching today's video. If this video helped you, please leave me a like and subscribe, and leave a comment on something that you want to see next. I upload every Tuesdays at 2 p.m., and you can also follow me on Instagram or Depop to check PDFs or buy something. Thank you for watching. See you next week.